Hi there, and welcome to the Daily Gardener, an almanac of garden history, literature, and small botanical joys. I'm Jennifer Ebling, and today is March 12th. Some gardeners love the show of it, the bloom, the flourish, the instant reward. And some gardeners love the study of it, the pages, the marginal notes, the penciled corrections, the way a garden keeps teaching you quietly for a lifetime. Today is for anyone who has ever stood still beside a plant and thought, what are you, really? What are you made of? What do you mean? What do you know that I don't yet know? Here's today's garden history. It was on this day in 1501 that the Italian botanist Pietro Andrea Mattioli was born. Pietro lived in a time when plants were not just pretty. They were medicine. They were survival. They were the difference between relief and suffering. And Pietro became one of the great translators of that knowledge. His life's work was a sprawling botanical handbook, a kind of Renaissance plant encyclopedia, built on the ancient text of Dioscorides, but expanded with what Pietro insisted mattered most, what he had seen with his own eyes. Pietro added new species, he corrected old errors, and later editions were filled with hundreds upon hundreds of woodcut illustrations, heavy volumes, ink-stained fingers, blocks worn smooth by years of use. So detailed that a gardener or a physician could recognize a plant, even when the words were dense, or the Latin felt like a locked door. And then there's the detail that always charms gardeners. Pietro was the first European botanist to describe the tomato, a new world arrival that startled the old world. Pietro called the tomato pomi d'oro, or golden apples, and when he wrote about cooking them, he simply said, use salt and oil. Imagine that moment, a strange fruit, newly arrived, sitting on a table like a question, bright as a coin, suspicious as nightshade. And there's Pietro, careful, exacting, a little suspicious, but writing it into history anyway. Pietro could be sharp-edged, argumentative, so certain of his authority that botanical disagreements turned into public battles. The gardening world has always had its drama, but Pietro's lasting gift was steadier than his temperament. He helped move plant knowledge away from rumor and toward observation. Look at the plant. Name what you see. Draw it. Share it. That's Pietro Mattioli. His name lingers in the garden itself, in the genus Mattiola, the fragrant stalks. So if you've ever brushed past stalks in spring and caught that clove-sweet scent, you've met a small echo of Pietro's life, pressed into petals and carried forward. And it was on this day in 1732 that the German botanist Joseph Gaertner was born. Joseph studied seeds and fruits so closely that he's remembered as the father of carpology, or the study of fruit and seed structure. Before Joseph, the language was fuzzy. People gestured at reproduction and inheritance without really knowing what they were seeing. But Joseph gave gardeners and botanists something steadier. Clear definitions for the anatomy of the seed and fruit. The pericarp, or the fruit wall, the endosperm, and the cotyledons, those first seed leaves. Joseph didn't create these terms as a result of casual looking. He built his own microscopes. He dissected thousands of seeds. He engraved plate after plate. And what makes his work feel almost modern is how global it was. Seeds arrived to Joseph Gaertner from across oceans, from collectors, explorers, and correspondents, passed hand to hand until they reached Joseph's desk. A small packet, a foreign label, a seed no bigger than a freckle, carrying an entire landscape inside it. And there is a quiet human cost to this story. Joseph's devotion was so intense that it damaged his eyesight. He paid for precision with his own vision. But he kept going because he believed the seed held the truest story of the plant. Flowers are fleeting, he argued. Beautiful, yes, but brief. But the seed contains lineage. And every gardener knows what he meant, even without the Latin. Because when you hold a seed packet in your palm, you're holding a future small enough to lose and powerful enough to outlast you. In today's Unearthed Words, we hear from the Italian poet Gabriele D'Annunzio, born on this day in 1863. Gabriele believed a garden could be written like a life. He once described a garden as a book of living stones. Gabriele didn't just plant gardens, he composed them. At the Vito Reale, his estate on Lake Garda, paths became sentences, statues became punctuation, and every plant became a symbol. Gabriele once wrote, "The woman bent down to pick up the fallen pomegranate from the grass. It was ripe. It had burst open in the fall and stained her white dress." The vision of the laden barge, the pale island, the flowery meadow returned to her loving spirit along with the Creator's words, "This is my body. Take and eat." To Gabriele, the garden is a place where we are meant to find joy and sustenance, as well as belonging. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, A History of Women in the Garden by Dr. Twiggs Way. This book is also published under the title Virgins, Weeders, and Queens. And this week's book recommendations all celebrate women who shaped gardens and landscapes, often without recognition. Twiggs writes the hidden history that gardeners can feel in their bones, that for centuries, women's work in gardens was everywhere and rarely recorded. She brings forward the weeding women, the household herb growers, the skilled laborers and quiet experts, the women who kept gardens alive through ordinary days and hard years. And what's deeply encouraging about this book is how it changes your sense of scale. A woman stopping to pull weeds in a great estate garden, she's part of the record too. A woman tending medicinal herbs behind a cottage, she also belongs to history. This book makes today's small task feel larger, like you're walking a path worn down over generations. Hands in soil, knees in grass, a life shaped by tending. And finally, here's something sweet to ignite the little botanic spark in your heart. It was on this day in 1799 that the English poet Mary Howitt was born. Mary wrote about gardens the same way some people write about refuge. She believed beauty wasn't a luxury reserved only for the wealthy. It was a form of quiet sustenance. Mary celebrated common flowers, daisies, buttercups, heart's ease, and insisted that wisdom was not hidden in rare things. It was right there, in reach. Mary wrote that the happiest person is the one who can gather wisdom from a flower, and gardeners can feel her meaning. Not the showiest bloom, not the most exotic specimen, just the small, faithful flower that returns each year, as if to say, I'm still here. As we close the show today, remember, a garden can be a book of knowledge. Pietro Mattioli taught gardeners to look closely and to record what they saw. Joseph Gaertner proved that the deepest stories are often hidden inside the seed. Gabriele D'Annunzio treated the garden as an autobiography, a landscape written in symbols. And Mary Howitt returned again and again to a simple truth, that beauty can teach and comfort and steady a life. So today, if you're out in your own garden or just looking out the window, let something small be enough. A book, a note, a single bloom, a seed in your palm. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.